Introduction to the Husia. And this is the Husia, and I probably shouldn't be saying this, but you can get a PDF version of the Husia that you can go search to type in Husia PDF, and you can actually get and have it on your phone. You know, you can look at it there. This book came out in 1984, and many of us that were attending WOSE at the time traveled to Compton College and you know, participated in the first ASCAC, Association of Classical African Civilization, you know, formation of it, you know, and Dr. KARENGA convened it, and he released this book, the Husia. And here he is. For those of you, I don't know how you could possibly not know Dr. KARENGA, and here he is. And here he is with his wife, TIAMOYO. And I got a chance to hang out with them a few years back, and they were just really, it was really great. It was an enjoyable experience to be with them. And so Dr. KARENGA, MAULANA, Dr. MAULANA KARENGA. MAULANA is a word in Kiswahili. It means master teacher. And in other languages, it refers to a scholar, or, you know, like a serious elder person. So his name is MAULANA KARENGA. So really that name MAULANA is more of a title than a name. He's the chairman of African Studies at Cal State Long Beach. He's the author of the African American celebration known as Kwanzaa. A lot of people are celebrating that around the world. And he's the author of several books, including the Husia. The Book of the Coming Forth came out right after the Husia, and the Odu Ifa, which deals with the spirituality of Ifa that comes out of the Yoruba tradition. And if you all want to jump in and ask a question, you know, feel free to speak up. So the Husia is divided into 7 sections: books of creation, books of prayers and sacred praises, moral narrative, books of wise instruction, and books of contemplation, declaration of virtues, and rising like Ra. So the Husia is taken actually from 2 Commission or Kemetic words, which are actually Neteru. Western scholars call Neteru gods and goddesses. So Hu means authoritative utterance, and Sia means exceptional insight. And this is how you would write Hu, that line, that glyph that looks like a twisted flax, or actually in the shape of DNA, is the H, and the quail chick, sometimes it represents a U, and sometimes it represents a W. And Sia, this is how you would write Sia in Medu Nature. So it means authoritative utterance and exceptional insight. That's what the book means. Continuing on, Commission spirituality identified abstractions personifying respectively creative command or authoritative utterance, and perception or intelligence. They were all essential forces in creation and continuance of the cosmos. So Hu and Sia actually served as crew members in the solar bark, or the solar boat of Ra. They were represented in an undistinctive form as bearded men, also served as bearers of the eye of Hor or Heru. In the text known as the Memphite theology, which we're going to talk about as we get into this, they personified the tongue and the heart of PTAH. They were regarded as being two divine attributes of the of every PRA. And for those of you that don't know, PRA is what Egyptologists and Westerners call Pharaoh. Think about this. There was never a time in the ancient time when there was a man named Pharaoh or a country named Egypt. We're using a lot of terms that actually were imposed on this land by people that came in much later. So Husia and Ra are also Hu and Sia are also aspects of Ra. Let me just go back here just for a minute. We don't really have time to get into it today, but you see this boat that Ra travels on, and you see its shape. Have you ever seen like shapes for when they do wormholes? Because this is the boat of 1,000,000 years, and it travels millions of miles. And just think about the rays of the sun coming to the earth. Takes 8 minutes, and it's coming from 93 million miles away. Don't have time to really get into it, but just something to think. So now, Dr. Ben kind of plays into this, and here is Dr. Yosef Ben Yakinen, affectionately called Dr. Ben. Originally, the Husia was livicated to Dr. Yosef Ben Yakinen. The very first versions of the Husia, Dr. KARENGA is livicating. He says dedicated, but I don't like that word, so I borrowed the word livicated from the Rastas because they don't want to deal with anything dead. And so he livicated that book to Dr. Yosef Ben Yakinen. Dr. Ben, as he was affectionately called, was a well-known historian. He was a professor, lecturer of African history. He toured extensively through throughout the country, and around the world. So people knew Dr. Ben in England. People knew Dr. Ben in Kemet in Egypt, and he just went from college to university to state lecturing on African history and culture. One of the questions that he would pose to his audience, so Dr. Ben would run down all these things beginning in Kemet. He would go through and tell you about Hannibal and in Carthage. He would talk about how the Greeks were influenced by the Africans, and he would just run down all these things. And one of the questions that he would ask is, where is your book? Meaning the so-called major Western religions have their holy book. He would say the Jews have their book, the Christians have their book, the Muslims have their book. Where is your book? Where is the one for African people? And Dr. KARENGA answered this challenge by presenting the Husia. So he included Dr. Ben in his first edition to the Husia. And at some point, a disagreement took place between these two scholars. And then Dr. KARENGA livicated the Husia to another great African scholar and historian, Dr. Shenkata Diop. And, so Dr. KARENGA came to Sacramento one year, and Sister Faye Kennedy, it was the first year that she had Black Book Fair here in Sacramento. And she asked me, she said, Imhotep, would you be able to pick Dr. KARENGA and his wife up and say, you know, and just take them to their hotel and drive them around and stuff? And I said, is this a trick question? Of course I would. And so when Dr. KARENGA was in my car, him and his wife, TIAMOYO, I just asked him, I said, hey man, what happened? Why did you take, why was Dr. Ben stricken from the Husia? And he simply explained that Dr. Ben asked me to take his name out of the book. And he had some disagreement in the terms of the way that Dr. KARENGA presented gender. You know, sometimes Dr. KARENGA would include masculine and feminine gender when he's talking about individuals, and Dr. Ben, you know, felt like, you know, if it was masculine, if that word was used, you know, you should stay with that. And so he said, well, just take my name out of the book. You know, sometimes our heavyweight scholars, they have these, well, how shall I put it? You know, sometimes they can have these vocal and visible disagreements, and they don't care who's around. So I'll just leave it at that. But so he livicated it to Dr. Sheikata Diop. And I know generally in English we say Diop, but in Senegal, they pronounce that word Diop. So Dr. Sheikata Diop was born in 1923, transitioned to the ancestors in 1986. And he was a historian. He's an anthropologist. He was a physicist. He had a radiocarbon dating lab. I think the first one in Africa, in Senegal. He studied the human race's origins in pre-colonial African culture. His books are African Origin of Civilization, Myth or Reality, Pre-Colonial Black Africa, Cultural Unity of Black Africa, Civilization or Barbarism, and Black Africa, Basis for a Federal State, which actually shows you how to create. He lays the groundwork for how to create a United States of Africa. So Dr. Diop argued that there was a shared cultural unity across the African continent, and he thought this was more important than, you know, just focusing on just individual different ethnic groups, and you know, actually show their continuity, show their similarities. And you know, he was able to reconstruct part of the Medu Neter just using current African languages such as Wolof and Pole and other languages. Now, as the title states, the title says the Husia, it says selections from the Husia. Why would he say that? Because there are so many Commission texts, Kemetic texts, that one book wouldn't be enough. So conceivably, he might do a part two. Well, he kind of did that when he did the Book of the Coming Forth by Day. All right, now in the Husia, it talks about the story before the story. The books of knowing creation show the story before the creator. Yeah, that's right. Our ancestors have the story before the creator came into existence. And it deals with this concept of creation before humans, before Neteru, before the power of heavens were created. So I'm going to pause here. Are there any questions? I see somebody has written something in the chat. All right. Yes, you're welcome. All right. So are there any questions that someone would like to address?
Well, are you going to expand somewhat or later on in terms of this notion that you just introduced of the story before the creator?
Yes, I am, sir. Thank you for asking that. Anyone else? I just, after you do a lot of talking, you just want to make sure that people are still there. I see we have 13 participants, so I'm okay. So I'm just going to keep.
Question.
Yes, yes.
Now, KARENGA was talking about expanding this. Do you know if he ever did anything with that? He was going to do a large Husia.
Yeah, to date, as far as I'm aware, it has not been done.
Okay.
He has made a book, a follow-up of sorts to this book called the book of the Coming Forth, which is kind of an expansion of Rising Like Ra, and so he did put his take on that book. Since then he's come out with the Odu Ifa, which is an expansion, or actually a book that's livicated to the Yoruba perspective, and a lot of terms and stories, and who the orishas are, and etc. And a lot of wise sayings are in there. So that's a good question. I see somebody.
He did a book on Ma'at too.
You know what? Thank you for mentioning that. How could I leave that out? That's right. He did. He did. He did write. And it's extensive. It's like about 400 pages on Mott. Yeah. So just an answer to your question, Tyrone. Yes. But he didn't call it the Husia. He called it Mott and the Book of the Coming Forth by Day.
I have a question.
Yes.
So is the Husia to be read in a certain order? That is to say, should be read in the order that it's written? Because the end is the oldest part. I just found that out when I was doing my research. And so I'm just wondering, is there an approach? And I know it's a series of very important readings that we should have, but is there like continuity? Is it or just each thing to be taken separately and absorbed? I don't know if I said that right.
Well, I think you did, and that's a really good question, and I always like your intelligent questions. You can take the Husia and open it up to any part, and it's so if you want to know about the books of knowing creation, you can just open it up and look at that. If you want to talk about books of contemplation, you can look at that. If you want to look at the books of wise, wherever you open it, you can begin there. I because it was new, I started at the beginning, but really, just for myself, I just open it up. And wherever I land when I open it up, that's what I look at. There was a sister that was part of our community who's now joined the ancestors. Her name was Anita, and that's what Anita would do. She would wake up and open up the Husia and dwell on whatever scripture she would read. So you don't have to start in any place. Any place that you start is good, So and really, I want to emphasize too that these scriptures in here, these texts are a springboard to learn other things, with respect to Kemetic thought or Kemetic texts. This kind of gives you a basic foundation that you can look at other texts. If you are so fortunate to be able to travel to Kemet, you'll have a better grasp of what's going on, when you go into the various temples and tombs, etc. So thank you for that question. Good question. So the story.
I had a question. Right,
oh yes, Minister Mahdi. Yes, go
I
ahead.
had raised my hand on the thing.
I'm sorry, I missed it, man.
You know, we often hear a lot about, as reference material, the papyri. You know, the papyri, a lot of the stuff is written in the papyri.
Yes.
So are you familiar with how to, and then I also know that there is the pyramid text, which Alan has written, you know, something on the pyramid text, but as it relates to the papyri, do you know how to access or have any information or anything you could say about, you know, coming to a learning or studying about the information that's on the papyri? Because I hear there's so much, and I want that to be the next phase of my study, to start.
You know what, and we're not talking about it tonight, but you might investigate, and this is in the Husia, but then there's other expansions on this, and that would be the Book of PTAH.
Mm-hmm.
The Book of PTAH, and there are versions out there on the net that actually have the Medu Neter along with, you know, the English translation. So, for instance, PTAH, he was in line to be a PRIMORDIal, but he decided to, livicate his life to the priesthood. He's a 5th dynastic priest, and when he wrote his book, he was 110 years old. He knew that he wasn't going to live, that much longer, and he asked permission to write these things down, and they were wise instructions. So that's a good a place to start. Also, the pyramid text is a good place as well, from the documents of Winis, or some people say Unas, other people pronounce it Winis. When I was in Kemet, they stressed that it's Winis. So I would suggest those 2 places are good places to start. When you say papyri, there's so much there. So if you deal with the pyramid text, it's actually in the pyramid, or the Perneter of Unas. It's on the walls.
Right.
So these are things that are on the walls, and there are papyri. Most of these things that are written in the Husia are actually from a different papyri. And you know what? You can take any person's name, like Onkshishanki, or Amenemope, or Kun Anpu. Oh, you know what? So his Ayikwe Arma wrote a book, and it's in like Akan, Arabic, Bambara, actually that's pronounced Bambara, English, France, Hausa, Kikongo, Kiswahili, Portuguese, Pular. I don't know what Pular is. Wolof, Yoruba, and Zulu. And it is the instructions of PTAH, and he has the glyphs, and he has I would recommend that. That's a good book to study, and it's reasonably priced. It's $24, and I don't have the website right at my fingertips, but it's a website that's actually coming out of San Francisco, and you can send me. Oh, just send me a note to remind me that I need to do that. And he also wrote The Eloquent Peasant in the same way. And it's 24. It's 24 pages. Excuse me, it's $24, and it's like 500 pages.
Shay, well, thank you so much. That's great. Yeah, I appreciate that.
Yeah, and then,
That's a good launching part, like you said. So
yeah,
thank
and then you can just, you know, to your heart's content.
yeah, because I
And
mean it's a lot
we
to
can
do,
talk.
right? All
Yeah,
right, thank
yeah.
you.
I mean, because you can't. Let's see, Kalahari. I don't believe one can go anywhere in Europe and have not. Yeah, you're right. You're right, man. All right, I'm going to keep going. The concept of noon. So the concept of new. Usually, when you see these squiggly lines written, that is a glyph that means that you know equates to the English in, but it you know it has a connotation of vibration, of water, you know, floating atoms. So it's written NU, and it's also written NUN. And so in the Commission creation accounts, the original mound of land comes forth from the waters of noon. So I have to go to another book, but in Stolen Legacy, it talks about PTAH, the self-created, coming out of the waters of noon, and then forms a hill. And then out of those waters, Atum comes out, sits on the hill, and executes the order of creation. And so what our ancestors taught was that the noon is the source of all that appears in the differentiated world, encompassing all aspects of divine and earthly existence. In the Enad cosmology, or the Kamenu, which it means like a company of 8 Neterus, noon is perceived as transcendent at the point of creation alongside Atum, the creator. So this is what they say about it. It says, before the world was formed, before what was to come into existence, there was something the ancients along the Nile called the noon. And it is before the universe, the Neteru. It is a fluid ether. It is the generator of the Neteru and the rest of all of creation. So this actually is coming from the description that Dr. Theophile Obenga, you know, who was a protege, a student, a companion of Dr. Sheikh Joe. The noon is uncreated. Everything emerges from the noon, including the creator, Neteru. The creator, Neteru, emerges from the noon. It is uncreated, fluid, ethereal ether, very opaque, dense, compact. It is the cause, the reason, the foundation of all subsequent becoming. So this is what our ancestors, you know, closer to the time of creation, were able to extrapolate, you know, in their own meditations. And this is how you write noon in Medu Neter. It's this cup here, and this loaf is a tea, and this glyph here is actually includes the sky. And this is another way of writing it: the squiggly lines, and then the cups. And sometimes it's portrayed as a you know, there is no masculine and feminine. It is both. It is all. And sometimes it's portrayed as a man with breasts, and sometimes this actual figure is representative of a nectar associated with the Nile called the Happy. And here, this is another depiction of the noon rising up out of the creator rising up out of the noon and bringing forth the other Neteru, the other aspects, the other powers of creation. So who are the Neteru? So here we are. We have Amen, we have Tahuti, we have Sheshet. Sheshet is Tahuti's consort. We have Wasir, we have Aset, we have Hor or Horus or Heru. We have Set, we have Nebhet, we have Anpu, we have Amut. You know, so who are the Neteru? So here are the Neteru. It's another aspect of them in the boat of Ra. So this is what Dr. Firo Obenga says about the Neteru, his description. He says, originally the word Neter meant the awakening of higher consciousness within the primordial essence of Nun, with created beings extending the creator's creation daily. And this is kind of what Dr. or Professor Smalls was saying to us on Sunday, and what he says in other lectures or talks that he's given when he's talking about even the concept of Vodun. You know, that we are aspects of the creator and we are extending the creator's creation. Another aspect is the sun ceaselessly being born and reborn from its own energy. This is a philosophy that exalts life in the name of cosmic order. And so this is from Dr. Theo Obenga. So originally it meant the awakening of higher consciousness in the primordial essence, the image of God who reveals himself in the new for the purpose of acting, doing, creating, and guiding humanity and the entire world. Created beings extend the creator's creation daily. The Neter are the infinite multiplication of primordial energy emergent from creative matter. Western scholars refer to the Neteru as gods. So that was their concept. You know, they didn't know any better. That was as far as that they could see. And this is how you would write Neter, you know, as a plural. This I used to think was a flag, but it actually is an axe. And an axe is something that splits something in two. You know, kind of like when people are talking about splitting the atom. Anyway, here's how, now this basket underneath represents Neb, and Neb means Lord. So this is like Lord, what this is saying is Lord of the Neteru. That's what this glyph is saying. And, you know, I was reading in Stephen Mailer's book, From Light to Darkness, and he's pointing out in his book that the Hebrew letter, that's S in English, the Commission sign for Neter can be seen 3 times in the Hebrew letter. And this one he shows in his book is at the Temple of Phele in Aswan. He says the Commission glyph Neter, Neteru, the triple Neter, the Neter of Neters. The triple Neter was utilized in the Hebrew letter Shin, a letter representing Al Shaddai, a Kabbalistic name of the Jewish God. So, you know, when you hear people like, you know, they're talking about El Shaddai, they're actually talking about Neb, Neteru. And you can see the evolution in the alphabet. I'll leave that up just for a few minutes for you to kind of take that in. That's just amazing to me. I'm glad that he put that in his book. Now, getting on to this thing called the Shabaka stone. So now the Shabaka stone is a stone that was discovered, and it has what's known as the Memphite theology. And so this is the way it looks from, far away. And then when you get up on it, you can see the glyphs, the writing here, the Medu Necher here. And so somebody actually, took a pen or something, or some graphic paper, and was able to reproduce the glyphs, and they're read mostly from up to down, like this here on the right. This is all part of the Memphite theology, and this is the PTAH, Shabaka. He was either the second or third PTAH of the 25th dynastic period. It's known as the Nubian Renaissance. So that's an actual statue of him. The Shabaka stone goes back to the 25th dynastic period, and it's actually taken from an older work that dates pre-dynastic times, conservatively. I want to emphasize that word, conservatively, 4100 BC. And so when he had it in his time, which is like 700 BC, he recognized what it was, and he restored it and made it, because he felt like this was important for humanity to know about it. Again, that's the Shabaka stone. Contained within this stone are the oldest writings of creation. It refers to an aspect of creation called PTAH. So PTAH, I want to say a few words about PTAH. Here's generally how PTAH is depicted. A lot of times he's depicted as blue. Sometimes he's known as Lord of the Blue, or he'll have a blue cap, and he'll have this staff, which is it's a combination of the Ankh, the Jed, the Waz staff. And here he is again up close. And here he is again. And this, you can see here, his name written, this box, that's the P. It's a box or a stool. And this flax is the H, and this is the T. So his name is contained within here. All right, going to keep going. So yeah, this is how you would write PTAH. And PTAH means self-created. It's the twisted flax strongly resembles DNA molecule. So that's pretty interesting. His name means self-created, and in order to write his name, you have the DNA molecule in his name. And here is PTAH with his consort Sekhmet, the feminine lioness-headed Necher. And I got a chance to go into her temple at in Luxor, and actually Karnak, I guess that would be. I always get I know where I am when I'm there, but I always get the names confused. But there at that location, which is actually ancient Wosei, there's a temple of Sekhmet, and you go in there, and I don't know, you get kind of transformed. It's something really, it's hard to explain. She has the lioness headdress, but she has human eyes, and they kind of follow you. And there's an opening in the ceiling, and if you get there at the right time of the day, the light shines directly on her. But I'm not going to say that Oscar they got the concept of Oscar by looking at PTAH and this other statue of Wasir, but they sure do look similar.
Now, PTAH and Asar, they seem to be the only two deities depicted in the form of dress that they wear a very tight-fitting garment. Any insights on that?
Well, there's various theories as to that. Some say because PTAH was such a, you know, they use the word primitive, which actually, you know, kind of means first, that when our ancestors were doing sculpture, they didn't, you know, they didn't know how to, you know, extend the arms. So that's why. And then, but then others say that, you know, the reason why they're depicted like this is because they're representing the spirit descending into the physical body, and they're not as able to, you know, so spirit is not able to do all of the things that it normally could do in the physical body. So there's two different things that say that, okay, this is why they're depicted that way. Hope I answered that. But now then, now this is another aspect here, and this is coming from Jordan Maxwell. So PTAH and Jupiter, you know, what does it say? You know, upon this rock, I will build my church. This is what Yeshua or Jesus is saying to Peter. And, you know, I just told you that PTAH comes out of the Noom and forms the hill, and then upon everything, you know, then Atum comes and gets on top, and then all of creation comes about. So Jupiter is a Roman aspect of king of the gods, and here you can see in the Vatican is a statue of Jupiter. And then as the Christian thing came along, he became Saint Peter. People go and they kiss this statue, this cold black statue with this man seated on a throne with nappy hair. I like this. This is an artist's depiction of what we've been describing. So here at the bottom, here's the Noom, and this is PTAH forming the hill, and then out of the Noom, Atum, or sometimes Ra, sits upon that hill, and from its body, different aspects of creation are formed. And then they multiply, and then they come to what we know as creation today. You know, and then here's another aspect of it. In Stolen Legacy, they talk about the Neteru, or gods of chaos, and the gods of order. So chaos is representing hidden and its opposite, boundlessness and its opposite, primordial ocean and its opposite. The way I remember, it's actually, the way I remember, it's a mnemonic. So if you think of the word Ankh, so Amen, hidden and its opposite, in the primordial oceans and its opposite, K, cow and cowcat, boundlessness and its opposite, and then the H, heh, like James Brown, heh, all right, is infinity and its opposite. But after that, then there's a Neterus of order, which are Shu, air, Tefnut, moisture, Geb, earth, Nut, sky, and from them come Wasir, Aset, Set, Nebhet, and then Horus or Heru. Also, the Atum relates to the atom, the physical atom. It relates to the sun and the planets going around it, but it also relates to the atomic structure. There's a lot to this. I'm gonna keep it moving. So PTAH. This is what it says in the Husia and other books that deal with these knowing of creation. It says PTAH, a form of Ra, the most great, who has given existence to all the divine powers to their essences through his heart, mind, and tongue. Let me check what someone put something in the chat. Let me look at that. Okay, Minister Mahdi had to go. So it says, thus it came to pass that the heart, mind, and tongue ruled all the other members through the teaching that PTAH Ra is within every body as heart and mind, and within every mouth as tongue, and all of the divine powers, all humankind, of cattle, of all creeping things, of all living things, and he thinks as heart and mind, and commands as tongue whatever he wishes. PTAH Ra's company of divine powers are before him as teeth and lips, and are the teeth and lips which establish the names of all things and forms which came forth. Shu, the power of light and air. Tefnut, the power of moisture, brought into being the company of the divine powers themselves. The seeing of the eye, the hearing of the ears, and the breathing of the nose are communicated to the heart and mind, and the heart and mind cause all perception to come forth. And what the heart and mind think and wish is declared by the tongue. So were all the divine powers created, and the company of divine powers completed. I'm going to pause there. Are there any questions, any observations that you all that are listening would like to make at this juncture?
Yeah, it seems to me like noon represents the unconscious mind, infinite in its dimensions. And it was always there, like just with us. We have this unconscious mind. It seems to just be infinite. It's possibilities. And to me, it seems like that is what has always existed, like the mind, the unconscious mind of the creator would be noon.
Mm-hmm. 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 This is actually, I kind of dealt with this in another PowerPoint, and actually I was looking at what, I was looking at what Reverend Ike used to say, if you can believe that. And then I looked at, so Reverend Ike was actually referring to this other guy named Neville Goddard, and Neville Goddard was referring to this Ethiopian that he learned the concept of I am. And that he says, every time that you say I am, you are referring to God. And every time that you use I am in a negative, you're taking the name of God in vain. And so when I look at this, it says, what the heart and mind think and wish is declared by the tongue. He's showing you in this verse how to bring about creation for your own self. What the heart and mind think and wish is declared by the tongue. So in the Hebrew canon, it says, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was God, and the Word was with God. He was with God in the beginning. And so it kind of gives a real brief summary of what they're saying here in the Memphite theology. Anyone else?
In this heart and mind phrasing, is that are we referring to the mental or the intellectual aspect as one aspect of being, and the mind being that kind of a summation of all that we know and we bring together in some kind of conceptual form? How do you read the heart and mind phrasing there?
Well, sometimes the heart and mind are put together, and they're known as the ab, or excuse me, the ib, and that's what's on the scales at judgment. And it's not necessarily the physical heart, but it's actually the consciousness of a person. You know, your consciousness, that, you know, how you are, your actual essence. And just think about, you know, if you're trying to do something and your heart isn't in it, or you're trying to do something and you say one thing but you really mean another, that's confusion. And then that's why you're not able to create. And so when I look at it, I'm just seeing that all of these things are together. You know, you bring your heart, your mind. You first discover what you want to do. You know, what do you really want? And then you see that. And then you actually speak it into existence. And it's so, you know, when I was talking about the Neteru and how the Neteru are coming out of the essence of Noon, that's talking about us. That's talking about us here on this earth today. But we just don't see it. You know, we just don't recognize it. We haven't taken the time to contemplate on it and to know that we are connected to the infinite, and that there are really no limitations on us. Uh-oh. I hope I didn't lose anybody. All right.
Oh, yeah.
Go ahead. Someone else?
I was just thinking, kind of trying to put that heart, mind, and declaration by the tongue together in how we create, you know, how we speak into being, and the necessity to use your heart and mind before you open your mouth.
Oh, yes. Yes. Well, when I think about you, Gloria, so, you know, you were with us, and then you decided in your heart and mind to go to Hawaii and have an experience there, you know, with your music, and you did it. You know, you had your heart and mind. You told us what you were going to do, and you did it. You know, that you were bringing about creation. Oh,
Yes.
I see. Okay. I don't know if I answered your question, Gloria. If I did, let me know.
I didn't really have a question. It's just more of an observation. And when I think about, as a songwriter, and when I think about the songs that I write, or the meditations that come to me that I sing, I mean, that song, I mean, Island Paradise was my testimony, quite frankly, because I wrote that song before I had any idea about going to Hawaii or going to Kauai.
Is that right? Is that right? Wow.
Felt in my heart, I just felt that in my heart and mind when I wrote that song, and I literally saying myself and saying that creation into existence in my life.
You know, so many people do that. So many people are able to see something and bring it into fruition, bring it into creation. Isali, you had a question. Go ahead. You said you're on mute, but now I'm thinking you're off mute now, right?
Yeah. Hi. Peace and blessings.
All right, peace and blessing.
Hey. But yeah, I also, to add to what y'all are saying, you basically can manifest whatever you want in your life. So I really like that scripture. I forget exactly what page that is on, but when I read it, it really manifested with me, or resonated with me, because you can manifest whatever you want. And here it is in writing with some of the earliest texts, sacred writing. And then that leads to my question. I was wondering, when they say like this is the earliest sacred writings, like I was reading the Husia, and on the back of it, it says that. And I'm wondering, like, what time frame are they talking about?
What time frame that these things were written? There are various different time frames. As someone said earlier, I think it was Minister Amadi, or it could have been someone else talking about the Book of Knowing of Creation. Oh no, it was actually Debbie that talked about the books of Rising Like Ra and actually being older, and they're in the back of the book. And so the Memphite theology goes back at least to 4100 BC, but I'm just going to say that it goes out much further.
BC.
Yeah,
BC.
yeah. And I'm talking about 20,000 BC.
Oh wow.
That's how far. And the statue that we call the Sphinx, there's a large amount of evidence, body of evidence, to say that goes back 30 to 50,000, 54,000 BC. And I know that sounds fantastic, but that's how old those places are. When we talk about the Preneters or the pyramids, we're talking like 20,000. And this is what the indigenous wisdom keepers that are still around in Kemet, this is what they teach. So, but, to be conservative, at least 4100 BC. So when PTAH is writing, he's writing in the 5th dynastic period. There's various time periods that things are written.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's not like, okay, it's not linear. When you use that book, it's not starting at, like they do in the Bible, like they say in the Bible, like 6,000 BC and come to, like the time of Jesus, and then that was only 2,000 years. It's not that. There are various periods. It's selections from the Husia, so it's various periods that they're drawing from to bring this book together. But this part that we're talking about is at least 4100 BC.
Okay. And one basic question, I'm pretty new to this. So I know there's 2 different ways of pronouncing Mayat. When you traveled to Egypt, I mean, what did you hear about our Kemet? Like, what is how do you pronounce it? Or is it just okay either way? Or
some people say Mat.
Yeah, I hear Mat and I hear Mayat, and I'm like, which one is?
And you know what? So what the difficulty is that we are looking at words that essentially are a bunch of consonants running together.
Right, because there are no vowels, right?
And the people that wrote those knew where the vowels went. And so people today are making an educated guess. They're using the language that is spoken in Kemet today called Coptic, which is actually the ancient Egyptian language written with Greek alphabets. And so they're looking, and so they, actually that's how the Rosetta Stone, the so-called Rosetta Stone, they found Cleopatra's name and Ptolemy's name in Medu Neter, and then they saw it in Coptic, and that's how they were able to get as far as they've gotten now with the language. But so when you see PTAH, it's actually written PTH.
PAH. Okay, PTH. Yeah.
How would you pronounce that? So, you know, there's agreement among scholars and just looking at the Coptic language to help that okay, some people actually put a and some actually put an E. You know, so you know, the answer to your question is either pronunciation is good. Mat or Ma'at. Some people write it M-A-A-T. Some write it M-A, you know, apostrophe A-T.
Yeah.
So either way.
Either way.
Yeah.
Okay.
Can I share an observation also, Minister?
Yes, sir.
Going back to the heart and mind, as has been mentioned, our ancestors did not separate the heart from the mind. The heart was considered the seat of your consciousness, or the seat of intelligence even. And I think there's a significant difference, whereas the heart is revered, which is why it is weighed against the feather of Ma'at. Whereas in European circles, the heart is always diminished. You're always told, don't follow your heart, because that represents emotion. Always go with the mind, you know, what you see, what you can taste, what you can feel, as opposed to how you actually feel. So I think that's always been something that has been, you know, important to me, whereas they chose that organ, the heart, to be the center of your being, how you lived your life. And it wasn't about emphasizing, you know, quote unquote intelligence, or what would be considered an emotional aspect of a person's being.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. They were considered as one. We don't have the same. We don't have the same. You're welcome, Isali. We don't have the same concept as Westerners do, and that's why, you know, we're actually trying to free our mind, as Dr. Asa Hilliard used to say, and return to the source. He used to have this program, and he would show. Back then, he would do it with transparencies, and then he graduated to slides, and you know, now we do PowerPoints. But his program was called "Free Your Mind and Return to the Source." Indeed, every word of God came into being through that which the heart and mind thought, and the tongue commanded. Thus, by means of the word, all faculties, all qualities were fashioned and created, which furnish all food and yield all nourishment. And thus, justice is given to one who does what is loved, and punishment given to one who does what is hated. And thus were made every work and all crafts, the action of the arms and hands, the motion of the legs, the movement of every member of the body, according to the command which is conceived by the heart, mind, and brought forth by the tongue, which created the usefulness and action of everything. It is said of PTAH then, that he is he who made all and created the divine powers. He is the Tatagen, the risen land, who produced the divine powers and from whom everything came forth, food and provisions, divine offerings, every good thing. Thus it was recognized and understood that he is the mightiest of all divine powers, and after he had created all things and all divine utterances, PTAH Ra was pleased and rested. Where have we heard that before? So we're almost to close here. So here again, this is coming out of King Tut's tomb. He's referred to as Lord of the Blue. You know, he'll be, sometimes he'll be painted all blue. Sometimes he'll have a blue cap. Stephen Mailer says in his book From Light to Darkness that PTAH may have even came from the star system of Sirius. And here's PTAH again. He's holding the Jed staff representing stability. And here, I talked about this one Sunday, this particular glyph that PTAH is standing on is the glyph for Mot. As a matter of fact, one of the scriptures says, "I found no place on which to stand. I laid the foundation through Mot." So the ancient Kemetic people view creation as a continual process. Creation is repeated each day in nature and human history. And these sacred writings predate Hebrew, Christian, and Muslim texts by millennia. And that concludes Ashe, and I'm going to stop sharing my screen. And thank you for listening. I didn't know the minister Makalisi Oso Sawandi, the great man, was part of our discussion today. Any observations you would like to say, sir?
No, just appreciating your work, the great details that you've gone into there. I got in here late. I've only been about 8:35, 8:40 or so before my time anyway, before I was able to get in and tune in. But I just appreciate your work, the time that you have to put in to get all that information, the various sources you're able to tap into and pull it together. And I learn something every time I attend a presentation of yours. And so I just give thanks for your presence in our community, in our movement, and in our world.
Same way, I really enjoyed your historical tribute in the service. Everybody's talking about it. I think Professor Smalls really enjoyed it, and I've heard a number of positive comments about that. So we got about 10 minutes. I just want to let everybody know. I see Mom and Gina's joined us as well. Next week, Minister
I was late too.
You're late?
I was late. I was out and about, and then I was like, oh, it's Wednesday. So, oh, it's Wednesday.
Oh, right. Yeah, Wednesday. Yeah. Well, I'm glad that you all could make it. You just never know who's going to show. We just wanted to have something, you know, in the middle of the week, you know, in between Sundays, to reflect on our teachings. You know, we're recording this, and you know, it can be sent out to people to learn something, to share a little bit about our theology. And Minister Makalisi will be coming on next week, and he will be doing some aspect of the Husia. And it may be about the Neter Neth, or whatever is on his heart and mind to share with us next week. So we're looking forward to that. And then on the 23rd, we're going to have a overview of Kwanzaa. And I personally think Kwanzaa needs a hit record. You know, when you come, okay, Gloria, you know, heart, mind, and tongue, our songwriter, and Minister Makalisi. Makalisi has two albums out on Kwanzaa. Do they call them albums now? Anyway, he has he has two. But we need, you know what I mean? During this time, you know, I don't care how conscious you are. I don't care how woke you are. When you hear Donny Hathaway this Christmas, or when you hear Nat King Cole, or even when you hear Eartha Kitt, or you know, Mariah Carey, or you know,
Charles Brown.
Yeah. Oh, right.
Yes.
Yeah, Charles Brown. Yeah. Yeah. So when you hear those things, you get in a frame of mind, you know, and we need somehow some song that will go to the top of the charts in our hearts and minds, so that we can get in the Kwanzaa spirit. All right. So Minister Makalisi is going to talk. So on the 16th, and then on the 23rd, we're going to have like a Kwanzaa overview. You know, everything you wanted to know about Kwanzaa, you know, we're just gonna talk about it. You know, whatever you want to talk about. You know, we're going to pull out the Kwanzaa table. We're going to have the symbols. We're going to look at all that. And then on the 30th, we're actually going to be celebrating Kwanzaa, the Sacramento, we'll say Sacramento. You know, there's really only one we'll say, but the people in Sacramento, we're going to have a Kwanzaa on the 30th, and we're going to be, it's going to be on a different Zoom channel, and we'll get that information out to you. And it'll be at this same time, you know, 5 o'clock, so that people that are on the East Coast. I actually talked, as I said earlier, I talked to Yetunde, who is Brother Abrafo's widow. And so I told her about it. She says, hey, I got an extensive mailing list, so I'm going to send it out. So we'll just see who shows up. And we're gonna do it in the same. Minister Makalisi said, hey, I want to participate. So we'll just see what happens. You know, we're just going to be celebrating Kwanzaa. You know?
Will we be able to accommodate more than 100 people?
So yes, we will.
I see.
In order to do that, yeah, that's a good problem to have, huh?
Yes.
Yeah.
Excellent.
So in order to do that, you have to upgrade your Zoom. So the Zoom that I have now is the time is unlimited, but it's limited in terms of 100 people. So I'll have to kick in $5 more a month, and then you're able to get 300 people. And then I got to check with Kaba again, because he told me about some other thing where you can get even more. I forget how he said how to do it. So yes, we want to continue to expand and reach out, as Professor Smalls told us. You know, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. You know, don't consider people that are not part of the way as the other. Reach out. You know, who has a better network than the sorors? You know, who has a better network than the fraternity people? Who has a better, you know? So looking forward to just going forward, and I'm glad that we're going forward with you all. As I'm looking at Malik, you know, he's got, so that what's in the background is at a place called Abu Simbel, and you know, that was taken out of the water when the Aswan High Dam was being created. They wanted to move that temple to another place. So that's not the original place. And what those statues are looking out, they're looking out at water. And I remember going there with Dr. Ben, and it was a Nubian that came up to our group, and he said it like this. He says, there are 11 temples submerged under the water. So he was saying that there's 11 temples underneath that water that is facing. So there's so much that has not been uncovered. Only 20% of the things that could be discovered have been discovered, and the indigenous wisdom keepers teach that instead of 3 great pyramids there are actually 9. So we just don't know, you know, like in Bob Marley's Get Up, Stand Up, half the story has never been told. 20% is not even half. The story has never been told. So there's a lot of work to be done. It's 6:27. Anybody else want to say something before we close out?
No, I would just like to say that of all of those wonderful people that were there on Sunday, I certainly hope we see some more of them this Sunday.
Yes. Well, I hope so too. They know that we're here. A lot of times, though, as you have been in the struggle for a lot of times, for a long time, there are special event Africans. You know, they show up at Kwanzaa, they show up at, you know, somebody dies, everybody's there, you know, or, you know, African Liberation Day or some special event. We're going to have Dr. Theo Fielding is going to come back from Africa, and he's going to be, you know, people will be there.
It's true.
But just, you know, we're like, you know, we'll say it's like the little red hen, you know, that story that you hear, you know, I'm gonna bake this cake. Who's gonna help me do the flour? You know, who's gonna help me do? You know, and then everybody's like, not I. You know, hey, I gotta go. You know, I gotta go this. I gotta go that. And then what people will do is they'll show up and say, you guys have, this is how far you guys have gotten. You know what? So. I'm sorry. I sound like I'm venting, huh? Let me stop.
We'll be here when you're ready to take it out of the oven.
Yeah, that's right. Then people show up. That's right. But you know what? I'm not mad at them. You know, it says that in 2,000 seasons, not everybody, you know, is ready to follow the way. You know, they're just going with the current. You know, and what does it say in 2,000 seasons? The destroyers will set traps for the body, traps for the heart, traps to destroy the mind. But such a group that works knowing this, the destroyer's traps can never hold. So then that's where we are, sisters and brothers. And hey, it's 6:30. I gotta go. I'll talk to you later. All right, take care.
Blessings.
Live up.
Blessings.
One love.